The coldest thing I felt that night wasn't the rain. It was the metal of the handcuffs snapping around my wrists while a deputy stood behind me smiling like he'd just won a prize. I remember thinking, funny, this man has no idea who he's talking to, no idea what tomorrow morning looks like. And I swear to you, if someone had told him that in less than 12 hours he'd be standing in my courtroom while I looked down at him from the bench, he would have laughed in their face. Yeah, that happened. See, people talk about karma like it's some mystical thing floating around in the sky, but sometimes karma doesn't float. Sometimes it clocks in at 9 a.m. sharp and wears a black robe. That night I was tired, bone tired, the kind of tired that lives behind your eyes after you've spent 12 straight hours reading case files and legal briefs until the words start swimming and all I wanted was gas. A bottle of sparkling water and the quiet drive home. That was it. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, just peace. The station sat off a 2-lane highway outside town, one of those places where the fluorescent lights buzz and the pavement always smells faintly like motor oil, and rain was coming down hard enough to blur the edges of everything, turning headlights into glowing halos. I pulled in, stepped out, slid my card into the pump, wrapped my coat tighter, and for a minute it felt like the world had gone soft and distant, like the rain had built a little wall around me. Then I heard tires roll slow behind me, not pulling in, not parking, just creeping. And when I glanced at the reflection in the pump display, I saw a patrol cruiser slide in close enough to block my car. 2 doors opened. Out stepped Deputy Holloway, mid-30s, jaw-tight, chewing a toothpick like he thought he was starring in his own crime show, and behind him his rookie partner Reed, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Holloway circled my SUV, once slow, deliberate hand hovering near his holster, and he said loud enough for the rain to carry it, "Nice car." I didn't turn around. I just watched the numbers on the pump tick upward and said, "It gets me where I need to go." He chuckled, stepped closer, too close, close enough that I could smell tobacco on his breath. "You live around here," he said, "or you just passing through?" I capped the nozzle, turned, met his eyes. "I live here. I'm fueling up and going home." "Is there a problem, Deputy?" He repeated my neighborhood name like it was a joke, glanced at his partner and smirked. "That's an expensive area," he said, "for a single lady driving something like this." I kept my voice flat. "It's an SUV, and unless I violated a traffic law while standing still, I'm leaving." That's when his face changed. Smile gone, voice hard. "You match a description." I felt it right there, that shift, that moment, where a conversation stops being a conversation and turns into a script somebody else already wrote for you. "Dark vehicle, female driver, possible transport from Savannah," he said. I nodded once. "This vehicle is registered in my name. I can show you my ID." I reached slowly toward my purse. Slow, careful, deliberate. And he shouted, "Don't reach," hand snapping to his gun like I just pulled a knife. I froze, hands open. "I'm reaching for identification," I said. "I'm Judge Vivian Clark. Run my plates." He stepped in close, eyes cold. "I don't care if you're the queen of somewhere," he said, and then he grabbed my shoulder and slammed me against the hood. Pain shot through my arm, old injury flaring, rain soaking my hair, metal cold through my clothes. His partner shifted behind him. "Maybe we should run it first," the kid muttered. "Shut up," Reed Holloway snapped, and then the cuffs clicked tight around my wrists, tighter than necessary, ratcheted once more for emphasis. "Resisting," he said. "Disorderly. Failure to comply. We're gonna have a fun night." Now, here's the thing about men like that. They feed on reaction. They want tears, anger, fear, anything that proves the story they already told themselves about you. I didn't give him any of it. I breathed. I watched. I memorized his name tag, the unit number on the bumper, the camera above the gas station door, the sound of the rain hitting the pavement. He shoved me into the back of the cruiser and laughed with his partner like this was entertainment. At the station, they took my purse, my phone, my shoes, sat me on a concrete bench in a holding cell that smelled like bleach and old sweat. Hours went by. I asked for my phone call. I asked for a supervisor. I asked for counsel. The desk sergeant kept saying, "Processing takes time, systems down, sweetheart." And every time he said sweetheart, I knew exactly whose shadow he was afraid of. Around 3 in the morning, Holloway came back with coffee, leaned on the bars like we were chatting at a picnic. "Might be down all night," he said. "Get comfortable." I closed my eyes and replayed everything in my head like I was already on the bench reviewing evidence. No probable cause, excessive force, failure to Mirandize, denial of counsel. Then I heard him in booking laughing, telling someone he'd arrested me for DUI, swerving all over the road, screaming nonsense about being a judge. I opened my eyes. He was inventing charges. Someone asked about body cam footage. Battery died, he said, and then quieter. Yours did too, right? Reed silence. Then the kid's voice small. Yeah, mine too. And that's when I smiled just a little because he didn't know two things. He didn't know my SUV had a 360-degree dash cam system uploading automatically to cloud storage, and he didn't know my watch was still recording audio tucked where they hadn't bothered to check. So I thought, go ahead, keep talking, dig deeper. Around dawn shift change came in and a veteran officer walked past my cell, glanced once, stopped dead, leaned closer. Judge Clark, she whispered. I stood up slowly. Good morning, I said. There's been a mistake. She fumbled with keys, opened the door, handed me my belongings with shaking hands. I told her calmly, call the clerk. Tell them I'll be presiding over the 9 o'clock docket. She blinked. But you're listed as a defendant. I looked straight at her and said, not anymore. Today I'm the law. By the time court started, Holloway was in the courthouse restroom adjusting his tie, proud of himself, convinced he'd written the perfect report. He walked into the courtroom, saw I wasn't in the defendant seats, and smirked. Probably bailed, he muttered. His rookie sat beside him, leg bouncing. You sure about this? The kid whispered. Relax, Holloway said. She's nobody. Then the bailiff called, all rise. The clerk announced my name and the door behind the bench opened. I walked in wearing my robe, hair pulled back, files in hand, and I didn't look at him. At first, I just took my seat, arranged my papers, and let the silence stretch. When I finally lifted my eyes and they met his, I watched the exact second recognition hit. Color drained from his face like someone pulled a plug. I tapped the gavel once. Good morning, I said. We have a full docket today, and I've noticed some interesting filings from the sheriff's department. I asked for the file in the case of the state versus Jane Doe. The prosecutor stood confused. Your Honor, that case was dismissed for lack of merit. I held up a sheet of paper. Strange. Because I have an arrest report signed by Deputy Brett Holloway. Then I looked straight at him. Deputy approach. The room went still. He walked up like his shoes weighed 50 pounds each. State your name, I said. He did, voice shaking. I read from the report. You claim you arrested the suspect for DUI and resisting that she was swerving, smelled of alcohol, and was belligerent. Is this your sworn statement? He swallowed. He could have told the truth. He didn't. Yes, Your Honor. I nodded slowly. Then I set a flash drive on the bench. I'm entering Defense Exhibit A. Since the deputy's camera malfunctioned, perhaps this will clarify. I looked at him and said evenly, the defendant was me. You could hear people inhale. The prosecutor dropped his pen. I stood. I don't recall drinking. I do recall you slamming me into my car and telling your partner to lie about his camera. Then I said, Deputy Holloway, you are hereby held in contempt. Bailiff, take him into custody. He panicked. You can't do that. I'm an officer. I have immunity, I said. Immunity protects lawful actions. It does not protect perjury. The prosecutor confirmed it. I ordered the video played. The screen lit up with rain with the station with his cruiser blocking me and his voice, his hands, his lies, the audio of him telling Reed to say the battery died. When it ended, I called Reed to stand. Did your camera die? I asked. He looked at Holloway, then at me and said barely audible no. Speak up, I said. No, he repeated louder, tears in his eyes. He told me to turn it off. The courtroom erupted. Holloway lunged at him and the bailiff slammed him down before he got 2 steps. I revoked his bond before it was even set and remanded him to jail. He begged for protective custody. I told him, processing takes time. Get comfortable. Watching him walk out in cuffs, badge taken, uniform stripped, orange jumpsuit handed over, I felt something I didn't expect. Not triumph, not joy, just a quiet sense of balance settling back into place. But the story didn't end there, not even close, because once you pull one thread, sometimes the whole fabric comes loose. I contacted federal investigators. Files were opened, footage recovered, patterns emerged. We found evidence of planted drugs, falsified reports, intimidation. One case led to a young man named Marcus Johnson serving years for a crime he didn't commit. The video showed Holloway slipping narcotics from his own pocket into the kid's car. We brought Marcus back into court. The prosecutor stood and said, voice thick, "We were wrong." I vacated the conviction, dismissed the charges, expunged the record. Marcus cried. His mother cried. People in the gallery cried. I stepped down from the bench, took his hands, and told him I couldn't give him back the years he lost, but I could give him the truth on record. And I meant that. Months later, the deputy who once smirked at me was sitting in a federal cell facing decades. His career gone, his badge gone, his name reduced to a number. Some people call that justice. Some people call it revenge. Some say I went too far. Others say I didn't go far enough. And that's where I leave it with you, because stories like this don't end when the gavel hits wood. They end when people decide what they believe about power, about accountability, about who gets the benefit of the doubt and who doesn't. So, I want to ask you something honestly. If you'd been in my place that night in the rain, would you have let it go once you were safe, or would you have done exactly what I did and pulled the whole system into the light? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if you've ever seen something like this happen in real life, share it, because the only way stories like this stop repeating is when people stop pretending they don't exist.